So once upon a time, Necrons only had one tank, the Necron Monolith. Now when Games Workshop introduced new tanks for the Necrons, like the Doomsday Ark, they decided to make the rules for the Monolith not as good, so that we bought the new tanks. And ever since then, GW have really struggled with the Monolith rules. However, we have a brand new miniature now. But do the rules for the Necron Monolith still suck? It's coming right up.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. And if you're new to the channel and you want to learn about Necrons and more, then please subscribe and turn on all notifications so you don't miss an upload. Okay, so putting aside the cost of the new Necron Monolith miniature, which it is quite an expensive miniature, however it's exactly the same size as the old one, so you can still use your old Necron Monoliths or pick them up on eBay to play these miniatures. However, most people are saying that this Necron Monolith sucks, and studying the actual rules of the Monolith, which we will do in a minute, the actual Monolith rules are actually pretty good. However, they do have a problem. For some unknown reason, Games Workshop have decided to make the Monolith a Lord of War, so moving it from heavy support to a Lord of War, and that's really changed the dynamics of this miniature, because certainly for any competitive play where you're trying to get the most out of your command points, it really is a big issue. It's a big hurdle to get over. You either have to take a super heavy detachment, that's 3 Lords of War, and because the Monolith is a Titanic miniature, that means you've got to spend 6 command points. It does, however, mean that you can benefit from the Dynasty codes in that detachment. Now, the other way to take a Monolith is the super heavy auxiliary detachment, which will only cost you 3 command points, even though it is a Titanic miniature. However, you can't benefit from the Dynasty codes. And coming in at 360 points, just 90 points less than the Silent King himself, who incidentally is a Supreme Commander, so can take the Supreme Commander detachment. Well, the Monolith straight away has some big hurdles to get over to include it in your list. However, if you're willing to jump over those hurdles, the Monolith actually is pretty good. Necron Kai, never die. Now, the main issue is a competitive player will view those hurdles for taking the Monolith as way too much, as not a competitive choice, and thus then the Monolith becomes a unit that sucks. However, if you're not playing competitively and you can get over the hurdles of the command points or losing some of the Dynasty Code abilities, well, the Monolith could be a good choice for you, especially if you A, you like the model, or B, you just want more of a themed army. So, let's take a look at this Monolith and see what the rules are all about. For a long time, the Necron Monolith has been one of the worst units in the Codex. However, the rules definitely have improved. I mean, the movement has increased to start with. It's 8 inches now, dropping down to 6 inches and then 4 inches, where previously it was 6 inches, 5 inches and 4 inches. So 8-inch movement is pretty fast. Its ballistic skill has stayed the same, a 3+ at full wounds. However, it has more wounds now, so 24 wounds as opposed to 20. Its weapon skill has stayed the same, of a 6+, a lot more to come on that later. And then its strength and toughness has stayed the same at 8. It now has a 2+ save as opposed to a 3+ save. One of the issues with the Monolith previously was its survivability. So we've got more wounds and a 2+ save. Now, yes, we don't have an invulnerable save, we don't have quantum shielding, but a 2+ save is really going to help. Now, its leadership is 10, just like all Necrons, but it now has 6 attacks as opposed to 3 in close combat. Not only that, the new Portal of Exile rules means that those attacks automatically hit. Don't worry about those weapon skills 6+, these auto hit. 6 attacks, and it's strength 8, -3 AP and 3 damaged, a fixed 3 damage. This monolith is actually very good in close combat. Strike first, strike hard, no mercy! The monolith is also a titanic unit, which obviously messes with the CP situation in the detachments. However, it does mean that if you're not surrounded in close combat, you can actually fall back and still shoot. So talking of shooting, let's have a look at its gun. So first of all, the particle whip, the big golf ball crystal on the top. So the range of this gun has increased. It used to be 24 inches, it's now 36 inches. It used to be heavy 6 shots, and now it's heavy D6 shots. So we've got that random element, which is a big shame, but it's there. However, it's gone up in strength. Strength 12 as opposed to strength 8. It's also now -3 AP, where it used to be -2. It used to be a random D3 damage, and now it's a fixed 3 damage. However, in 9th edition, it has picked up the Blast special rule, so it's better at shooting units of 6 or 11 or more, taking that random side of things away a little. However, Blast weapons can't shoot in close combat. So 36 inches, it's random D6 with the Blast special rule, strength 12, -3 AP and 3 damage. A pretty decent weapon. However, we've got other weapons as well. The monolith still has its 4 Gauss flux arcs. However, they've had a bit of a revamp, going from 24 inches heavy 3 to 30 inches rapid fire 3. That means at 15 inches you've got 6 shots per gun. The rest of the stats have stayed the same, so strength 5, -2 AP and 1 damage. Basically infantry killing guns. However, we've also got the option to change these Gauss flux arcs for the first time into death rays. However, that's at 5 points per gun, so it's going to cost you an extra 20 points to do this, but the death rays are pretty tasty. These guns are basically the anti-tank version of the Gauss flux arcs. So the death rays have 1 shot each at 24 inches. However, they're strength 9, -3 AP, and then they do D3 plus 3 damage, so a minimum of 4 damage. So the monolith is very well equipped. It's got some good offensive capabilities with its guns and indeed in close combat and at a decent range as well. However, the monolith does have some other pretty cool abilities. The monolith has command protocols, and running alongside its 24 wounds and 2+ save, it also has living metal, regaining wounds, very useful. However, the monolith has lost its fly keyword, which is a bit of a shame, not just from the rules point of view, but because in the description of the monolith in the codex it says that it's skimming across the battlefield and it comes on a plastic stand which takes it off of the ground. However, it doesn't fly for some reason, which, well, rules wise also of course is a bit of a bummer. Especially in 9th edition, where the table's supposed to be a bit smaller and the terrain is still pretty dense. One reason maybe why the new Necron Monolith model wasn't actually bigger than the old one. It's actually exactly the same size. If it was bigger, it'd be even more difficult to play. Now you can still deep strike the monolith, however now it has to be more than 9 inches away, as opposed to previously it was 12 inches. So obviously again they're accounting for the fact that it's just more difficult to get it on the table. Of course you could just deploy it on the table. I mean, it does move 8 inches anyway until it gets down to 12 wounds, so it's got some good movement. And being so big, it could make some good mobile terrain as well. Maybe you could put your reanimator behind it. if you're taking reanimators. Now, as the unit suggests, you can still teleport units through the door of the monolith. Unlike the really good old days where you could teleport them from the battlefield, it's still from units in tactical reserve. However, there's been a bit of a change here. The rule is now on core units in tactical reserve. So of course, warriors, which is why you have a door with a warrior in it, immortals, but also Lich Guard. Actually, it's core infantry units. You could also teleport death marks through there if you wanted to, but certainly not tomb blades. Now you have to bear in mind that the units coming out of the monolith can only come out if the monolith doesn't move. So if you teleport to the monolith in on turn 2, the next unit can't come through the door until turn 3. So you might be better off just deploying it normally, moving your 8 inches on turn 1, not moving on turn 2, and then deploying your units from reserve. I'm liking the idea of putting Lich Guard in this unit rather than the traditional warriors. One reason why I made my door interchangeable, because if I'm putting Lich Guard through, or indeed immortals, why would I have a warrior coming out of the portal? So I can actually change the portal depending on my army list. Now, it used to be a bit of a risk putting a unit in tactical reserve with the monolith. If the monolith was destroyed, then the unit in tactical reserve was destroyed unless you started to use stratagems, which of course we can't do now unless we're in the super heavy detachment. So what they've done is they've changed the rule. So the unit in tactical reserve no longer dies, and if the monolith does get destroyed, the unit in reserve can just walk onto the table from reserve. Now, I'm not sure that teleporting units through the monolith door is the best option. I mean, we do have other options like the Veil of Darkness if we want to teleport things, but it is certainly an option. I think the monolith is better off pushing forward as a bit of a gunboat, a massive, big, moving piece of terrain to distract your enemy and, well, use their guns as effectively as they can. I'm definitely going to be playing the monolith in some games, and you'll see those on the channel. I'm going to play an actual super heavy detachment with 3 monoliths in, give them objective secure and a 6-inch movement before the start of the game, push them forward. They're going to be a lot of fun to play, and I still have around 900 points left for the rest of the army. 3 monoliths, or maybe 1 or 2 monoliths and another Lord of War in a super heavy detachment will allow you to use the Dynasty codes. It will allow you to use the stratagems as well, and there is a monolith stratagem, transdimensional corridor, which actually will allow you to teleport a unit that's on the battlefield rather than reserves through the portal of the monolith. We have some very good Dynasty code options that if we put onto a monolith could make it very good indeed. Like I said, personally I'm thinking a 6-inch pre-move and then objective secure on my monoliths. Just because it's not the most competitive unit doesn't mean that we can't play it, doesn't mean that we can't have fun playing it, and doesn't mean that we can't make a list to actually make it work. So from a competitive point of view, yes, the monolith does suck. That Lord of War, why have you done it, Games Workshop? But that Lord of War situation has really messed with the monolith, despite the fact that it does have actually some very good rules. Get over the hurdle of the Lord of War situation, and this unit I think will bring some good things to your games. However, what do you think? Let me know in the comments box below. Now, if you enjoyed this video, here are some other of my tactical videos for you to watch next.